got to go read the Sarah Bedford piece I just reposted on my X account, formerly known as Twitter. Good morning, Sarah Bedford of the Washington Examiner. Great to have you here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can you talk to your sources on House Oversight and Judiciary? Ask if they'll come on my show, because you just own this story and you're running circles around the rest of us.
I'll put in a good word for you.
Tell us about the chronology here and what you apparently are uncovering, which is a pattern in practice of Hunter Biden bringing in his dad when he was vice president and dollars flowing to Hunter thereafter.
That's right. I mean, one of the stories that I wrote this week was sort of revisiting two of the dinners in Washington, D.C. at a fancy restaurant called Cafe Milano that Joe Biden attended as vice president. And first of all, I think that the Democrats in the White House are sort of trying to dismiss any revisiting of these things as old news, right? Oh, we've already covered this. We already knew about the dinners because there were indications that dinners occurred on Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. But I still think it's really valuable to go back and recontextualize these events with everything we know now from the Devin Archer transcript, from the bank records that the House Oversight Committee has obtained, to everything we've learned about how significant these dinners are. At both dinners, you had people who worked at Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, and you had Kazakh oligarchs attend these dinners. And one was in the spring of 2014, one was in the spring of 2015. And business between the Ukrainians and these Kazakh oligarchs really flourished after they were sort of brought together with Joe Biden as the drawing figure. And I think that's really significant because it's really hard to dismiss these as social calls when tangible business successes came out of them.
You know, I'm beginning to think every American in those rooms had to have registered as a Foreign Agent Registration Act. I do not believe the vice president is exempt from that act if he's doing business on behalf of a private company. I really don't, Sarah. And that's the FARA charges have never popped up before in any other investigation. But are your sources telling you the Foreign Agents Registration Act is in the background here?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to argue this isn't a textbook violation of FARA, which states that the minute, if you're working for a foreign company, the minute you represent that company's interest in front of a U.S. government official, that triggers a FARA requirement. And so to bring, Kazakh energy oligarchs, to bring Ukrainian energy oligarchs to a meeting with Vice President Joe Biden and talk business, that's a pretty clear violation of FARA, and it's far from the only one. There's plenty of evidence that Hunter Biden was working not just his father, but using the facts that his father was vice president to make inroads at the State Department, for example, in embassies with U.S. ambassadors. That is also a violation of FARA, and I think an abuse of that power that he had with the last name. If you are a U.S. ambassador and you ultimately answer to the White House, and the son of the vice president is calling you for a favor, you're going to pick up the phone.
Yeah, no, I know that room. I've been in that room. And that room is immediately on the left as you come in. You turn left and you go into that room. They only have one room. And that's where the room where it happened. Was Joe Biden physically present at both of those dinners?
He was. And interestingly, for the second one especially, which had a potentially even more problematic guest list, the Joe Biden campaign in 2020, when the laptop first came out, said Joe Biden unequivocally he did not attend. Later, the former vice presidential aides went back through his schedules and said, well, it wasn't on his schedule, so he probably didn't attend. And then when some of the other attendees admitted he was there, the vice presidential aides from the time and then the Joe Biden's White House aides said, we talked to him. He actually did stop by, but he made the decision to do so last minute, that afternoon, and that's why it didn't appear on the schedule. It was just a spontaneous drop by.
Okay, Sarah, I got to ask you one more question before we run out of time. Did the vice president turn over the anonymous emails at the time he exited the White House? Did NARA have to go and get them?
No, NARA has them, but now, there's executive privilege being exercised over some of them, which Joe Biden has as the sitting president, so it's really unclear if we're going to get anything meaningful.
But he didn't have it then. I mean, he does not have executive privilege in 2015 and 14. He's the vice president.
It's a complicated situation, but what I wrote about yesterday is that the Oversight Committee said National Archives came back and said Obama is reviewing some of these emails for release to the Oversight Committee, and so is Biden. So there's sort of a veto power there that might prevent anything meaningful from
Well, the
coming
special
through.
counsel ought to go and subpoena them immediately. Because we got statutes of limitations that are ticking, right? I don't know what the FARA statute is. Do you? For non-registration?
I don't know that one as well. I know that the statute for the tax violations are ticking for the 2017, 2018 tax years, and that's the clock that the special counsel is up against.
Right now, I think it's the most successful cover-up in Washington, D.C. modern history. I just do. They have successfully covered up everything to do with the president and his son via delay, via David Weiss, via Merrick Garland. It's just a cover-up, but Sarah Bedford is on the case. Sarah C. Bedford on X, the site formerly known as Twitter. Thank you, Sarah.